In the bustling metropolis of New York City, amidst the towering skyscrapers and vibrant cultural tapestry, a different kind of story is unfolding. It's a tale of a district grappling with a surge in crime, a shadow of illicit activities creeping into the everyday lives of its residents. This is the story of a red light district within the constituency of a prominent figure, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, a place where local leaders are sounding the alarm, pleading for intervention to reclaim their streets. Roosevelt Avenue in Queens, a vital commercial artery stretching for 2 miles, has become the epicenter of this growing crisis. Once a vibrant hub of community life, it is now being likened by residents to a third-world country or a red light district. The sidewalks, once bustling with shoppers and families, are now reportedly lined with scantily clad women soliciting sex, a stark and unsettling image for those who call this neighborhood home. The situation has become so dire that local leaders, including former Democratic State Senator Hiram Monserrat, have taken the extraordinary step of writing to FBI Director Kash Patel. Their plea is urgent. Unleash federal agents to quell the out-of-control sex trade and drug scourge that they say has transformed their community into a gangland. This isn't just about isolated incidents. Residents claim that ruthless gangs, most notably the 18th Street Gang, have moved in, filling the void left by groups like Tren de Aragua after a significant police operation. This power vacuum has allegedly allowed these criminal enterprises to establish a firm foothold, turning Roosevelt Avenue into a marketplace for their illicit activities. The concerns voiced by community leaders paint a grim picture. They allege that these gangs are involved in a wide array of serious crimes, extending far beyond prostitution and drug dealing to encompass human trafficking, illegal gun sales, identity theft, and the distribution of counterfeit green cards. The sense of lawlessness is palpable, with reports of gang insignia being openly displayed, marking their territory. Adding to the distress, sources within the community have identified at least 20 brothels operating in the area, some alarmingly close to schools. This proximity to educational institutions underscores the brazenness of these operations and the potential danger to the neighborhood's youth. Earlier this week, the gravity of the situation was tragically highlighted when a man was fatally stabbed just steps from a local subway station as he tried to stop a thief from stealing his bicycle. This incident serves as a stark reminder that the escalating crime is not confined to the shadows of the night but is spilling out into the daylight, impacting the safety and well-being of ordinary citizens. Monserrat himself shared a disturbing video on social media purportedly showing 23 alleged sex workers on a single block. This visual evidence lends credence to the residents' claims that the problem is widespread and deeply entrenched. In September of the previous year, cameras reportedly captured a similar scene with nearly 20 alleged sex workers on one block and several more on the next, with one woman openly soliciting sex for as little as $60. The residents' frustration is compounded by what they perceive as a lack of response from their elected representative Ocasio-Cortez. Despite multiple requests for comment from news outlets regarding the situation on Roosevelt Avenue, she has yet to publicly address the growing concerns of her constituents. This silence has fueled criticism and a sense of abandonment among those who feel their pleas for help are being ignored. Representative Grace Meng, whose district also includes part of the affected neighborhood, offered a statement to Fox News Digital, indicating that she is closely engaged with the NYPD's ongoing efforts to improve public safety and quality of life in the area. As the top Democrat on the Appropriations Subcommittee responsible for funding law enforcement agencies, she pledged to continue advocating for the necessary resources to protect residents in Queens. However, for many residents directly impacted by the situation on Roosevelt Avenue, this may not feel like a direct enough response to their urgent calls for immediate action. The unfolding situation in this corner of New York City paints a stark picture of a community struggling with the encroachment of organized crime and the visible signs of a burgeoning sex trade. The calls for federal intervention underscore the severity of the problem and the local leaders' belief that the situation has spiraled beyond the capacity of local law enforcement alone. As the story unfolds, the eyes of the city, and perhaps the nation, will be on whether these pleas for help will be answered and what steps will be taken to restore safety and order to this beleaguered neighborhood. The roots of the current crisis on Roosevelt Avenue appear to be multifaceted, involving a complex interplay of factors that have allowed criminal elements to gain a significant foothold. Residents and local leaders point to a perceived lack of consistent and effective law enforcement as a key contributor. They argue that while individual officers may be dedicated, the overall strategy and resource allocation have not been sufficient to deter and dismantle the growing criminal enterprises. The departure of the Tren de Aragua gang following a concerted police effort inadvertently created a vacuum that other, potentially more ruthless, groups like the 18th Street Gang were quick to exploit. This highlights the fluid nature of organized crime and the constant need for vigilance and sustained pressure to prevent new groups from emerging and establishing dominance. The 18th Street Gang, with its reputation for violence and broad criminal activities, represents a significant escalation in the threat to the community. The allegations of human trafficking are particularly disturbing. If substantiated, they indicate a severe violation of human rights and a level of exploitation that demands immediate and decisive action. The sale of illegal firearms and counterfeit documents further underscores the dangerous and multifaceted nature of the criminal operations allegedly taking place in the area. The ease with which these activities are reportedly conducted in broad daylight speaks volumes about the perceived lack of consequences and the level of control these gangs exert. The presence of brothels in close proximity to schools is a source of deep concern for parents and educators. This not only exposes children to potentially harmful and inappropriate activities but also raises serious questions about the safety and security of school zones. The normalization of such illicit activities in the vicinity of educational institutions can have long-lasting negative effects on the community's social fabric and the well-being of its young people. The tragic stabbing incident served as a stark wake-up call, demonstrating that the violence associated with these criminal enterprises is not confined to those involved in the illicit activities themselves. Innocent bystanders can become victims, shattering the sense of safety and security that every community deserves. The brazenness of the bicycle theft and the subsequent fatal confrontation suggest a growing disregard for the law and the lives of ordinary citizens. The visual evidence, such as the videos shared by former Senator Montserrat, provides a tangible illustration of the scale of the problem. The sheer number of alleged sex workers openly soliciting on the streets challenges the notion that these are isolated incidents or minor offenses. It suggests a well-organized and pervasive operation that has become a visible and disruptive presence in the neighborhood. The fact that similar scenes were captured months apart indicates that this is not a temporary issue but a persistent and potentially worsening trend. The silence from Representative Ocasio-Cortez has become a focal point of criticism and frustration. As the elected representative for the area, her constituents expect her to be their advocate and to actively engage with the challenges facing their community. Her lack of public comment on this issue has been interpreted by some as a lack of concern or a failure to prioritize the safety and well-being of her constituents. This silence risks eroding trust and creating a sense that their voices are not being heard at the highest levels of representation. Representative Meng's statement, while acknowledging the concerns and highlighting her commitment to securing resources for law enforcement, may not fully address the immediate sense of crisis felt by those living and working on Roosevelt Avenue. While long-term investment in law enforcement is crucial, residents are also seeking immediate and visible action to address the current state of lawlessness. The plea for federal intervention underscores the belief that local law enforcement resources and strategies may be insufficient to effectively tackle the deeply entrenched criminal networks operating in the area. The FBI's unique capabilities and resources, particularly in addressing organized crime and human trafficking, are seen as potentially crucial in dismantling these operations and restoring order. The situation on Roosevelt Avenue serves as a microcosm of the challenges faced by many urban communities grappling with the complexities of crime, poverty, and the influence of organized criminal enterprises. It highlights the importance of a coordinated and multifaceted approach involving law enforcement, community leaders, and elected officials to effectively address these issues and ensure the safety and well-being of all residents. The coming weeks and months will be critical in determining whether the calls for help will be heeded and what steps will be taken to reclaim this vital New York City neighborhood. The unfolding crisis on Roosevelt Avenue is not just a matter of law enforcement, it also touches upon broader societal issues and the complex dynamics of urban environments. The presence of a thriving sex trade often indicates underlying issues such as poverty, lack of economic opportunity, and vulnerability. Addressing the symptoms without tackling these root causes may lead to a temporary suppression of the problem only for it to resurface elsewhere or in a different form. The allegations of gang involvement add another layer of complexity. Organized criminal groups are often deeply entrenched, with sophisticated networks and a capacity for violence and intimidation that can overwhelm local law enforcement. Their involvement in multiple illicit activities, from drug trafficking to human trafficking, requires a coordinated and intelligence-driven approach to dismantle their operations effectively. The community's frustration with the perceived lack of response from their elected officials highlights the crucial role of representation and advocacy. Residents look to their leaders not only to enact policies but also to be their voice and champion their concerns. When communities feel ignored or that their problems are not being taken seriously, it can lead to disillusionment and a breakdown of trust in the political process. The comparison of Roosevelt Avenue to a third-world country or a red-light district underscores the profound impact the escalating crime has had on the residents' sense of place and well-being. These are strong and emotive descriptions reflecting a deep level of distress and a feeling that the fundamental character and safety of their neighborhood have been eroded. The call for FBI intervention is a significant step, indicating a belief that the situation has reached a point where local resources are insufficient. Federal agencies like the FBI have broader jurisdictional powers and specialized expertise in dealing with organized crime, human trafficking, and other complex criminal enterprises that may extend beyond state lines. The involvement of federal law enforcement could bring a different level of resources and investigative capabilities to bear on the problem. However, federal intervention is not a panacea. It requires careful coordination with local law enforcement and a clear understanding of the local dynamics. A sustainable solution will likely involve a multi-pronged approach that combines robust law enforcement efforts with community-based initiatives aimed at addressing the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to crime. The role of community leaders like former Senator Montserrat in amplifying the concerns of residents is crucial. Their willingness to speak out and bring attention to the issue can put pressure on elected officials and law enforcement agencies to take action. Their deep understanding of the local context and their connections within the community can also be invaluable in developing effective solutions. The media's role in reporting on the situation is also significant. By bringing the stories of Roosevelt Avenue residents to a wider audience, news outlets can raise awareness and create public pressure for change. The visual evidence captured by independent journalists and community members can be particularly powerful in illustrating the reality of the situation on the ground. The response from Representative Meng indicates an awareness of the problem and a commitment to addressing it through traditional channels, such as advocating for increased funding for local law enforcement. However, for residents who feel an immediate sense of crisis, this response may seem insufficient. They may be looking for more direct engagement from their elected officials and a more visible and immediate response to the lawlessness they are witnessing daily. The situation on Roosevelt Avenue raises important questions about urban governance, public safety, and the responsibility of elected officials to address the concerns of their constituents. It highlights the challenges of balancing the diverse needs and interests of urban populations and the complexities of tackling deeply rooted social and criminal problems. Ultimately, the story of Roosevelt Avenue is a human story. It's about residents who feel their community is being taken away from them, about families concerned for their safety, and about individuals caught in the cycle of exploitation and crime. Finding a sustainable solution will require not only effective law enforcement but also a commitment to addressing the underlying issues and restoring a sense of hope and opportunity to the community. The eyes of many will be watching to see how this crisis unfolds and what lessons can be learned for other urban areas facing similar challenges. As the situation on Roosevelt Avenue continues to garner attention, the debate surrounding potential solutions is intensifying. The stark contrast between the pleas for immediate federal intervention and the more measured responses focusing on local law enforcement funding highlights the differing perspectives on how best to address the crisis. Those advocating for federal involvement argue that the scale and nature of the alleged criminal activities, particularly the reported involvement of organized gangs and potential human trafficking, necessitate the unique resources and expertise of federal agencies like the FBI. They believe that a strong federal presence would send a clear message to the criminal elements operating in the area and provide the necessary muscle to dismantle their networks effectively. Conversely, those who emphasize local law enforcement solutions point to the importance of community policing and the need for sustained, long-term strategies tailored to the specific dynamics of the neighborhood. They argue that increased funding and support for the NYPD, coupled with collaborative efforts involving community leaders and residents, can lead to more sustainable improvements in public safety and quality of life. The silence from Representative Ocasio-Cortez remains a significant point of contention. Her constituents and critics alike are increasingly vocal in their calls for her to publicly acknowledge the situation and outline concrete steps she will take to address their concerns. Her continued silence risks being interpreted as indifference or a lack of willingness to confront a challenging issue within her constituency. The broader political context also plays a role in shaping the narrative. The story has attracted attention from national news outlets and political commentators, with some framing it as a reflection of broader urban challenges and the effectiveness of progressive policies. This external scrutiny adds another layer of complexity to the situation, potentially influencing the responses from elected officials and law enforcement agencies. It's important to acknowledge that addressing the issues on Roosevelt Avenue will likely require a multifaceted approach that integrates both federal and local resources and strategies. Federal agencies can bring specialized expertise and resources to tackle organized crime and human trafficking, while local law enforcement possesses the on-the-ground knowledge and community relationships necessary for effective long-term policing. Community engagement will also be crucial. Residents and local stakeholders have a deep understanding of the challenges facing their neighborhood and can play a vital role in identifying problems, developing solutions, and building trust with law enforcement. Initiatives that foster communication and collaboration between the police and the community can lead to more effective crime prevention and a greater sense of shared responsibility for public safety. Furthermore, addressing the underlying socio-economic factors that may contribute to the problems on Roosevelt Avenue is essential for long-term sustainability. This could involve investing in local businesses, creating job opportunities, providing social services, and addressing issues related to poverty and housing. A holistic approach that tackles both the symptoms and the root causes of crime is more likely to lead to lasting positive change. The situation also raises questions about the role of zoning laws and urban planning in shaping the character and safety of neighborhoods. The concentration of certain types of businesses and activities in a particular area can have unintended consequences, and thoughtful urban planning can play a role in promoting a more balanced and vibrant community. Ultimately, the path forward for Roosevelt Avenue will require leadership, collaboration, and a genuine commitment to addressing the concerns of the residents. It will involve difficult decisions, resource allocation, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. The outcome will not only impact the lives of those living and working in the area, but could also serve as a case study for how urban communities grapple with complex issues of crime, safety, and social well-being in the 21st century. The story of Roosevelt Avenue is far from over, and the next chapter will reveal the effectiveness and commitment of those who have been called upon to act. The unfolding narrative of Roosevelt Avenue serves as a potent reminder of the fragility of urban spaces and the constant vigilance required to maintain safe and thriving communities. The passionate pleas from local leaders and the stark accounts from residents paint a vivid picture of a neighborhood struggling against the encroaching tide of organized crime and its associated ills. The demand for federal intervention underscores a critical point. Sometimes local resources and strategies may be insufficient to tackle deeply entrenched criminal networks. The alleged involvement of gangs with a history of violence and the disturbing reports of human trafficking elevate the situation beyond typical local law enforcement challenges. The unique capabilities of federal agencies in investigating and prosecuting such complex crimes could prove to be a crucial turning point. However, relying solely on federal intervention is not a sustainable long-term solution. The revitalization of Roosevelt Avenue will necessitate a concerted and sustained effort at the local level. This includes empowering the NYPD to implement effective policing strategies, fostering stronger relationships between law enforcement and the community, and investing in initiatives that address the underlying socio-economic factors that can contribute to crime and vulnerability. The silence from Representative Ocasio-Cortez carries significant weight. As an elected official representing the affected community, her voice and active engagement are vital. Publicly addressing the concerns of her constituents, outlining a clear plan of action, and actively working with local and federal authorities would demonstrate leadership and a commitment to the well-being of her district. Her continued silence risks further alienating residents who feel their concerns are being ignored at a critical time. The situation on Roosevelt Avenue also highlights the importance of proactive measures to prevent such crises from taking root. This includes robust community policing initiatives, early intervention programs for at-risk youth, and strategic urban planning that promotes vibrant and safe public spaces. Addressing potential problems before they escalate can save communities from the kind of turmoil currently being experienced on Roosevelt Avenue. The role of the media in bringing this story to a wider audience is undeniable. By amplifying the voices of residents and local leaders, news outlets play a crucial role in holding elected officials and law enforcement agencies accountable. The visual evidence and personal stories shared through the media can be powerful catalysts for change. Looking ahead, the future of Roosevelt Avenue hangs in the balance. Will the calls for help be answered with decisive action? Will a coordinated strategy involving federal, state, and local authorities be implemented? Will the underlying issues that contributed to the crisis be addressed in a meaningful and sustainable way? The answers to these questions will not only determine the fate of this particular New York City neighborhood, but could also offer valuable lessons for other urban communities facing similar challenges. The resilience of the Roosevelt Avenue community should not be underestimated. The fact that residents and local leaders have bravely spoken out and continue to advocate for change demonstrates a deep commitment to their neighborhood. With the right support and resources and a concerted effort from all stakeholders, there is hope that Roosevelt Avenue can once again become the vibrant and safe community its residents deserve. The story that unfolds in the coming months will be a testament to the power of community advocacy and the responsibility of elected officials and law enforcement to respond effectively to the needs of those they serve. The nation watches, hoping for a resolution that restores safety, dignity, and hope to Roosevelt Avenue.